As we enter worship today, may we acknowledge that our church stands, and we stand virtually today, on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Pennacook people. Pennacook, also called Merrimack, means bottom of the hill. We honor the spirit and therefore the heart of this land, and that it is therefore your land. Kawasuk Band of the Pennacook Abenaki people.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist in Newburyport, Massachusetts. I'm Doug Latham, and I have the privilege of serving as your worship associate this morning. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are glad that you are here. If you're new and you'd like to connect, please fill out one of the blue cards in your pew and put it in the collection plate. We come together at FRS in person and online, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to all of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you are worshiping online and would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link just below the live stream. If you're here in the sanctuary and would like a large print order of service or hymnal, please ask an usher. They will be happy to help you. Please take a moment to review your order of service for all of the activities that are taking place this week. In particular, I highlight 2 film screenings that are hosted by 2 different FRSUU groups. The first is the Green Team, which invites you to attend a vegetarian-vegan potluck supper in the Lower Meeting House from 5:30 to 6:30 this Wednesday, February 25th, followed by a screening of an award-winning film, Common Ground, about regenerative agriculture at 7 p.m. Please sign up for the potluck via the link referenced in this past week's steeple. The second, in recognition of Black History Month, the Anti-Racism Initiative invites you to a screening of the Academy Award-winning 2004 film Crash next Saturday, the 28th at 10 a.m. in the morning at the screening room in Newburyport. The film interweaves several connected stories about race, class, family, and gender in post-9/11 Los Angeles. As time allows, a brief discussion will follow about the relevance of the 8th principle and our spiritual work to dismantle racism and other oppressions. A suggested donation to defray costs is $10 at the door, payable in cash or by check made out to FRSUU. Please scan the QR code in the order of service to reserve your spot. We hope to see you there. Every Sunday, it is such a blessing that we can gather, so let us give ourselves to it. Welcome once again. It is good to be together.
Let's bookend our worship today with Emily Dickinson's poem on hope. You'll hear Nick sing it at the end of the service, but sometimes a poem worth hearing is worth hearing twice. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Please stand in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 389, Gathered Here, which you will find in your gray hymnal. Would the FSU shelter team please come forward? They're going to help us with our chalice lighting. Please join in saying our chalice lighting words as members of the FRSU Youth Shelter Team light the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. You may be seated if you're still standing. Each week we also light 2 candles apiece, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are an untold number of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and throughout the week. After each candle is lit, we will sit in shared silence, and then I will invite you to respond saying peace, salam, shalom. Our first candle is lit for Gazan Muslims who in the midst of ongoing devastation sustain themselves and each other in the observance of Ramadan, while reminding us all of the value of ritual practice in our lives. A central part of the month of Ramadan is sharing with those in need. May we be reminded of how much we have and of how giving moves us toward the fullness of our humanity. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle is lit for Christians and Muslims around the world who on Wednesday began the observance of Lent and Ramadan. May these shared days of intensified spiritual practice be a blessing for those involved, and may the light generated by that practice be a blessing for the world. To this we respond, peace, salam, shalom. Please rise in body or spirit and join in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. Our community partner for the second half of February is UTEC. UTEC's mission is to ignite and nurture the ambition of our most disconnected young people to trade violence and poverty for social and economic success. They serve Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill. The program starts behind the walls of correctional facilities and transitions into an intensive program in the community post-release. 87% of young adults in their workforce development programming had no new arraignments. This re-arraignment rate is 1/4 of the state average. Please help fuel the hope for young people in this program. To give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course you can mail a check to the church. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Speak no more, and my voice be still, as it was before. I will speak no more, I shall abide until I am spoken for, if it be your will. If it be your will, let a voice be true from this broken hill. I will sing to you from this broken hill. All your praises they shall ring. If it be your will to let me sing.
Each week we lift up the joys and sorrows of our beloved faith community. Nancy Kidd, our pastoral care associate, will light the candles as I read what has been shared with me in advance of today's service. If you would like to share a joy or a sorrow to be read in the service, you can always send an email to betweenus@frsuu.org or write in the book located in the vestibule. Let us gather.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, loved and true, with
Deb Moss welcomes 8.5-pound Nolan Kennedy to the world, joined by her older sisters Penelope and Josephine Kennedy, delivered by their grateful parents, Jordan and Lily Kennedy. This week we remember our beloved Reverend Helen with joy but sorrow still on the 2-year anniversary of her passing. As we continue to mourn her loss, we will always be grateful for her kindness to everyone. We also have a wonderful joy on this anniversary, the upcoming 2nd annual Reverend Helen Mergida Service Award. This award honors individuals who demonstrate a selfless dedication to advocating for the underserved, building bridges between diverse groups, and fostering a spirit of love, justice, and unity within Newburyport. Nominations are open until February 27th. That would be this Tuesday. If you'd like to nominate someone for this award, see the Newburyport website or speak with Matthew Mergida. Kay Pearson would like to give a shout out to her sister Lee. She writes, Lee has become my spokesperson and mediator for over 16 days since my arrival at the ER at Portsmouth Hospital. The echo test reflected 55% ejection fraction. Lee worked with nurses, social workers, doctors, OTs, and PTs for 8 days. Following nurses' strong instructions, don't get up, you will fall. When I was discharged, Lee drove me home in the dark in the snowstorm. I was relieved to be home. Lee continues to be my go-between with banks, offices at personal care, physicians, wellness visits, cornerstone nurses, OTs, PTs, groceries, and more. Meanwhile, I am able to be useful and feel satisfied finding my piles and files on demand while Lee financially and medically tracks progress. Lee has been my lifeline, for which I am grateful, beyond grateful. And then a follow-up note this morning. Just as the mail came yesterday, I rushed over to find a mailbox full of cards. I am so excited and grateful. As always, we light one final candle for those that remain unsaid, but which will live in our hearts.
Open my heart to be a sanctuary, all made holy, love and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
For many of you, the offertory may have been the first time you had heard Leonard Cohen's If It Be Your Will, clearly echoing Rabbi Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, but also resonant of Cohen's birthright Jewish tradition and the Zen Buddhism, which was so important for a period of his life. Let's let Cohen's prayer be ours today. If it be your will that I speak no more, and my voice be still as it was before, I will speak no more. I shall abide until I am spoken for, if it be your will. If it be your will that a voice be true from this broken hill, I will sing to you. From this broken hill, all your praises they shall ring, if it be your will to let me sing. From this broken hill, all your praises they shall ring, if it be your will to let me sing. If it be your will, if there is a choice, let the rivers fill, let the hills rejoice. Let your mercy spill on all these burning hearts in hell, if it be your will to make us well and to draw us near and bind us tight, all your children here in their rags of light, in our rags of light, all dressed to kill, and end this night, if it be your will. if it be your will.
Our reading this morning is from On Hope by James Davison Hunter. By hope, I do not mean optimism. Though often conflated, hope and optimism are not the same. Optimism, in its modern usage, is a corollary to ideologies of progress. It is a kind of cheerful fatalism, as Christopher Lasch puts it, that assumes that the present is better than the past and that the future will invariably deliver yet better things than we now enjoy, as we are carried along on an irresistible flood of innovation. Optimism, as an element of an ideology of progress, is reinforced by technological innovation and modern marketing, which by definition always sells the new and improved. Lasch was right when he described optimism as an opiate, because the point of optimism, or positivity, is to keep people focused on their own subjective well-being and happiness, regardless of the social, historical, or political circumstances people find themselves in. It lulls us into a false sense of security. Optimists have little need for authentic hope because they have a future of limitless progress on their side. Optimism, then, is not a requisite of change, but a strategy of adaptation. Continuing the reading, hope, by contrast, operates on a different plane. It does not require a belief in progress or improvement, but is formed out of a reckoning with truth and justice. It builds out of a source of value that transcends the transient and utilitarian realities of everyday life. It draws on, or is oriented toward, a sense of the underlying order of things that will not be violated with impunity. As Martin Luther King Jr. put it, hope is a conviction that something in the very structure of the cosmos will ultimately bring about the fulfillment and the triumph of that which is right. The sources of hope can be many: in metaphysical commitments or religious belief, or a more modest but firm commitment to the goodness that is in the world. They can be found in the ideal of the good in the Platonic sense, or a vision of the New Jerusalem, or the kingdom of God found in biblical faiths, or the way found in many Asian traditions. King himself and his followers in the black community had suffered too long and too much to believe in progress. Hope, then, operates with a tragic sensibility that recognizes that the future holds further disappointments. Shattered dreams, blasted hopes. This is life, he declared. Of course, some of us will die having not received the promise of freedom, King admitted. But we must continue to move on. On the one hand, we must accept the finite disappointment, but in spite of this, we must maintain the infinite hope. This is the only way that we will be able to live without the fatigue of bitterness and the drain of resentment. The ideals to which hope points and the idealism on which hope rests are then fundamental. A vision of a transcendent future rooted in the capacious possibilities of human flourishing provides both the vantage point to critically assess the present and the moral energy to move forward, build upon, and sacrifice constructively on its behalf.
I want to invite you today to think with me for a few minutes about the underpinnings of our liberal democracy, about what undergirds the way we do ourselves as citizens of the USA. By the way, if you're not a citizen, you're welcome here too. When I refer to our liberal democracy, I mean, according to James Davison Hunter, a tradition which, in his words, is constituted by the premises and principles of individual and collective freedom and representative self-government, and which, he continues, recognizes that a society is inherently diverse in its interests, ideas, values, and commitments, and provides the mechanism for addressing these differences in ways that can lead to common goods. It is that meaning of liberal I intend when I describe our system as a liberal democracy, and it is the ideas and ethical vision behind and beneath supporting that form of government that I'm inviting you to consider with me today. Our founders talked about, were grounded in such ideas and such vision. I think it behooves us to do so and be so too. I suggest this in spite of being quite aware that it seems a diversion from what so urgently stares us in the face: the cruelty, bellicosity, contempt for courts and international law and institutions, suggestion of nationalizing elections, admiration for foreign autocrats, and persistent testing whether there are any effective limits here to following their example. In fact, you could say that what I am doing today is pushing back against what is sometimes called the tyranny of the urgent. The urgent is indeed pressing and needs attention urgently. Still, I think that if we don't ask ourselves about what's behind the mess we're in, we'll just be putting off something that badly needs attending to as well. You've most likely already thought about it anyway. How in the world did we get here? Not just bitterly divided as a nation, but apparently with limited ability to talk across the chasms, much less find effective ways to bridge them and move forward together. I've related before from this pulpit how this dilemma came up in our COVID-era coffee hour around the time of the 2020 election, sending me, you might say, on a years-long journey trying to get at least a modicum of understanding of, quote, the other side, end quote. Along the way, and especially recently, I've been wondering more about how we, all of us, all sides, how we the people got into what I'll call again, surely too benignly, this mess. It certainly seems to me that our divisions originate from a level deeper than is usually dealt with by politics or even policy, and likely is not susceptible to political or policy solutions, at least not in any lasting way. Perhaps it is true in national life as it is in medical practice that diagnosis matters. One of my YouTube rabbit holes over the last year has been excerpts from the 2004 to 2012 TV series House, or House MD. Dr. Gregory House is a diagnostician extraordinaire, brilliant, intuitive, dogged, not to mention hard to live and work with, to say the least. The show regularly depicts urgent and emergent moments when you just have to keep the patient alive by treating the symptoms. But when the immediate crisis is past, when the readings on the monitors have stabilized, and preferably even before that, you better be thinking about the underlying cause. Even if you get the diagnosis right, the way forward isn't always clear. So what ails us? There are so many suggestions of answers out there, and I often find at least some value in what I hear and read. To keep things focused today, I've chosen one thinker, one author, to inform and enliven our discussion. James Davison Hunter is a professor at the University of Virginia, best known for his 1991 book, Culture Wars, The Struggle to Define America. The title of his 2024 book, Democracy and Solidarity, The Cultural Roots of America's Political Crisis, points us toward the core of his answer to the question, what ails us? A lack of solidarity, he says, or to represent him more accurately, the loss of sufficient basis for solidarity. Let's say that solidarity is a sense of standing together, or to word it more inclusively, being together and sticking together, of being in this together, a sense of we-ness or us-ness. The solidarity we're talking about here would mean standing with, putting ourselves beside all our fellow citizens, recognizing and feeling a we-ness with those who bitterly disagree with us, as well as those who feel like fellow travelers. Such a sense can be prompted by events like 9/11, but this kind of solidarity tends to be fleeting. Let's call it negative solidarity, involving standing against a common enemy. Affirmative solidarity, on the other hand, requires at least some common understandings, sensibility, and affections, a sense of shared destiny, and a shared story of who we are and what we're meant for. With that comes a sense of mutual obligation. Hunter distinguishes his chosen term solidarity from consensus, which implies, he says, conscious and deliberate assent, or consent. Solidarity, he says, is, and this is a long quotation, a richer term. What more typically binds us together in solidarity is a complex interweaving of the rational, affective, psychic, and sociological elements of human experience, things that cannot always be put into words. At some level, it would include some common ideas or ideals, but it would also include such intangible realities as intersubjective resonance and intuition, things that are every bit at least as affective as they are cognitive. Altogether, these elements provide sources of common recognition, a sense of we-ness. He goes on to say that such solidarity, quote, defines a framework of cohesion within which legitimate political debate, discourse, and action take place. To take a momentary break from what can be a very heady discourse, check in with your head and your heart. Do you think we the people, have that kind of solidarity? Have it sufficiently to be the we behind a government of, by, and for the people? Not only do you think it, do you feel it? Do we have that kind of cohesion as a context and support for political debate, discourse, and action? I mean it as a genuine question. You might, after all, have reservations about Hunter's direction and mine. Take a moment to check in with yourself. Now, if your answer is indeed no, some degree of no, we don't have much, any, enough solidarity, sufficient cohesion, then you're looking at what may be the link between what we're considering today and the urgent situation we're experiencing in our nation. In Hunter's view, when a citizenry, a nation, a people can't find solidarity within itself, autocracy will arise to impose it. So I ask, could it be that we the people, not finding sufficient solidarity among us, have managed, for most of us unintentionally and inadvertently, to bring to power an autocrat who will seek to impose it? Not have you or I or any of us individually done that, but have we together somehow managed it? Just ask it. Our February theme is questions that matter. Perhaps today's question is, can we find sufficient solidarity, enough cohesion, to maintain a liberal democracy? If our informal national motto is e pluribus unum, from many, one, we say the pluribus. What about the unum? Now, if I left you there, you might not only leave here a little depressed, but also wondering later if you're not already asking, why? If, as you suggested before, Stan, this lack of solidarity is neither caused by politics or policy, nor likely to be solved in any lasting way at the level of politics and policy, what does it come from? If autocracy is not the cause, but in fact the effect of our loss of solidarity, then what is its source? Well, Hunter doesn't leave it there, and neither will I. Let me summarize as briefly as I can responsibly do so what he dedicates more than half his book to. He's clearly a believer that ideas matter. He points out that the founders of this nation were heirs of the European Age of Enlightenment, or Age of Reason, typically seen as arising in the mid to late 17th century. The Enlightenment, across its various manifestations, involved an ethical vision for how societies could better organize public life. This vision rested on a belief that, quote, the standards of truth, justice, and rationality were universal, and therefore generally available to all reasonable persons. Through the light of reason, these standards would be so apparent that no rational human being could deny their authority. Also part of this vision was individual liberty, religious tolerance, progress, and natural rights. I would add that it was such a belief in the universality of reason that made the idea of the common good and the ability of citizens to arrive at some shared understanding of the common good make any sense. This network of ideas formed the basis of a deep level of culture, an implicit layer of cultural logic which underlay, undergirded, underwrote the documents of our founding and the explicit structures they mandated. It also lay beneath the cultural institutions and practices which have, at least until recently, helped form us as citizens. Religious institutions, civic organizations, 4th of July celebrations, standing with hand over heart as the national anthem is played, as we saw in figure skater Alyssa Liu on Friday before receiving her gold medal. What Hunter says about this deep level of culture and how it functions implicitly makes me think of fish in water and birds in the air, neither aware of the element that supports them. We are those fish and sea mammals. We are those birds in regard to our civic and political life. Some, like our founders and their learned contemporaries, like political scientists, students of culture, and others who study such matters in our day, some realize the water we swim in and the air in which we fly. Most of us, most of the time, not so much. Implicit, these ideas, forming a structure supporting our life together, typically unarticulated and in their affective, emotional impact barely articulable. They have been vital to our sense of who we are and our ability to sustain our way of living together and governing ourselves. Now, it's good to remind ourselves that it's not only from Europe that we inherit traditions of self-government. First nations of this continent had traditions of communal decision-making long before European settlement. That leads me to clarify that Hunter pulls no punches about the awful inconsistencies in how the Enlightenment ethical ideals laid out above were realized here, seeing the ideal as, quote, generative and powerful, but greatly flawed in its application. He speaks of its profound contradictions, weaknesses, and failures, its boundaries of exclusion, most egregiously against the Aboriginal tribes of the continent and African-born slaves, but also against Catholics, Mormons, and Jews. We would want to add against women, people of same-sex love and attraction, transgender individuals, those who are differently abled, whether physically or neurologically, among others. In fact, it is just here that Hunter sees the deep level of our culture, the network of ideas and ideals, most often implicit and unarticulated, even barely articulable, underlying our government and life together, as having served us well at least until recently, but perhaps no longer adequate to the present moment. He sees the ideals of this ethical vision, among them freedom, equality, and participatory self-government, as being flexible enough, he says opaque enough, that excluded individuals and groups could see themselves in them and claim for themselves inclusion in the promise they offered. He sees this undergirding layer as having enabled us to expand our vision of inclusion and pass through times of adjustment and even crisis with an enlarged, if still imperfect, sense of who we are. He sees this underpinning structure as no longer serving us as it once did, especially since the culture wars beginning in the 90s. He sees liberal democracy as an Enlightenment-era institution rooted for these 250-plus years in Enlightenment-era ideas and assumptions not nearly as compelling or even believable as they used to be. The idea of a universal reason whose authority no rational person could deny, perhaps the central concept of the Enlightenment's revolution in thought, is at least a broadly questioned proposition these days. And discussion of justice immediately raises questions of for whom and by what standard. Our increasingly small planet, with different cultural and civilizational worlds living cheek by jowl with each other, makes too easy assumptions about a universal meaning for reason, justice, truth, and rights more than difficult. Perhaps most obvious in illustrating the breakdown of the assumptions behind our national founding is the idea of the common good and our ability to come to some kind of agreement around it. Pretty clearly, we're in the soup on that one. Hunter's view is not only that this undergirding cultural logic, which has sustained us until recently, has played out, but that it has been replaced by a new logic of nihilism. Passive nihilism is best thought of as a kind of hopelessness or exhaustion. Active nihilism is composed of a mix of competing narratives of injury, resentment, and moral rage or outrage, and the prevalence of discourses that negate everything about the opposing side, plus revenge, sanctified as justice. All of this, of course, is potentiated by modern technologies. It's a sobering assessment, to be sure. At first, it seems to me somewhat extreme as well, but much of it does resonate with what I see around me. So where do we go from here? What's to be done? And where's the hope? Can we regain enough solidarity to maintain a liberal democracy? Can we find a solid new or renewed basis for cohesion? You heard in today's reading Hunter's distinction between optimism and hope. I think it's fair to say he's not optimistic, doesn't see much basis for it, but is hopeful. He's hopeful in the manner in which he finds in Martin Luther King Jr., a tragic hope which sees continuing struggle and disappointment ahead, but maintains, in King's words, the infinite hope. Hunter calls that transcendent or authentic hope. He says that though, as pragmatic people, Americans want a plan, in this case, a plan for reviving the culture of democracy, at this point we can really only talk about conditions without which such a renewal would be impossible. Such a renewal would require moral imagination, a fresh ethical vision, a new story of who we are and can be together. It would necessitate, among other things, an, quote, absolute and universal condemnation of political violence, end quote. A rediscovery of the idea of forgiveness in our civic and political interactions, and a reconstructed humanism, acknowledging our incontrovertible plurality and irreducible particularity, to use his terminology. It would require finding again the willingness and ability to work through our differences, and a visionary leadership willing to stay the course through being ignored and ridiculed. And it would necessitate that tragic, transcendent hope against hope to be found among us through a belief in God or gods, in the Tao or way of Buddhism or Taoism, in a firm commitment to the good of the world, or, I would add, in deep experiences of connection to something bigger than us, of connection to all that is, or even in a transformative experience of connection to one other being. What must we do then? I think we must be a both-and people, and on the one hand and on the other hand people, each hand supporting its own brand of hope. On the one hand, we must struggle, fight, if you will, each in her own way, for our vision of the good and the just. In this, we will often be supported by hope grounded in what we observe around us, in encouraging news, in facts on the ground. For liberals, hopes will be raised, for example, by the candidacy of Texas State Representative James Tallarico's run for the U.S. Senate, by the fact that there's now a strong Democratic U.S. candidate in Alaska, by encouraging polls, by good turnout at No Kings rallies. On the other hand, and especially regarding the deeper levels of our brokenness as a people, we may have to engage in a prolonged period of nourishing local communities. And perhaps as time goes on, larger than local communities, not just because that may seem all we can do at the moment, but because that may be where we'll discover the seeds of a network of ideas and ideals which can eventually support a newly revived liberal democracy, one that still aspires to a more perfect union. This is likely to be a time of watching and waiting, of paying attention to signs of new possibilities, sustained by a tragic because realistic, transcendent hope. John Milton's poem On His Blindness ends with the words, "They also serve, who only stand and wait." I think we're well advised to be a both-and people, and this would be my advice to conservatives as well as liberals. On the one hand, struggling for our vision of justice and truth, and on the other hand, willing to be patient in our inability as yet to see what positive way forward may appear. Willing to be patient while watching and waiting, attentive and observant, ready to nurture what arises among us for our healing, sustained by real, authentic, deep hope. So may it be. Amen. I invite you to join me in a short meditation on real hope. Please be comfortable. Close your eyes if that helps you to relax and go inside yourself. Now follow your breathing. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, and out. Now ask yourself where you find hope when there's little or no apparent reason for it. Where do you look for that thing with feathers that sings the tune without the words? perhaps because there are no words or they don't make any sense. Yet the tune rings true. Where do you find that hope which is a waiting in expectation, open and receptive, not knowing what to expect, but trusting somehow? Now, if asking that question has got you in touch with a little or a lot of that state of mind, state of heart, state of being, notice where you feel it in your body. Where does that tune vibrate? Put a mental marker on that spot. Know that going back there might help you hear the tune when you need hope, but can't find the words. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn. It's number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere, which you will find in your gray hymnal. Please join us next door in the parish hall for Justice Sunday with soup and salad. Our FRSU youth shelter team has set up a nice program for us on hopelessness. Hopelessness, wow. Did he really say that? On homelessness. The shelter team, you're on. On homelessness and our work with the Salvation Army Warming Center. Friends, Flannery O'Connor is reported to have said, "Faith is what someone knows to be true, whether they believe it or not." I think hope, real hope, is like that. We need that kind of hope, not just the hope that comes from good news and crashes with bad, but hope that sustains us when what we see around us doesn't really support much of a belief that good stuff is just around the corner. That's the kind of hope, said MLK, which can enable us to, quote, live without the fatigue of bitterness and the drain of resentment. Seek out that kind of hope, my friends, and when you find it, or it finds you, remember it. Go out in peace, dear ones, and return in great joy.
Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And the sweetest in the gale is heard, and so must be the storm that could abash a little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land.